Hello, it's 6 p.m. on Thursday, December 3rd. Here in Seoul, you're tuned in to our early evening edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom, filling in for Daniel Che. Let's start by taking a look at the headlines. Korea's National Assembly passes a $332 billion budget for next year. That's almost 3% larger than this year's budget. Lawmakers also sign off on 5 livelihood-related bills. In an attempt to give the economy a boost and create more jobs, Korea's Fair Trade Commission lifts 18 regulations that were deemed excessively stifling or unfair on local companies and producers. Plus, bowing to public criticism over Korea's recently adopted law school system, the Justice Ministry decides to postpone the abolition of the state-run bar exam until 2021. After days of bipartisan wrangling, lawmakers at the National Assembly have passed a $332 billion budget bill for 2016. They also approved 5 key bills aimed at improving the lives of ordinary people. Our Myung-kil starts us off.
Lawmakers had a busy day on Thursday. They passed the 2016 budget and 5 other key bills, while agreeing to continue discussion on more contentious pending legislation. Here's what's in the 2016 budget. The government has allocated $105 billion for welfare, $45 billion for education, $19 billion for R&D and social overhead capital, $33 billion for defense, $5.6 billion for culture and tourism, $4 billion for foreign affairs and unification, and the rest for other expenses related to such things as public safety, agriculture and fisheries, the environment, energy, and small businesses. The 2016 budget is nearly 3%, or $9.4 billion higher than this year's, but $257 million less than the original plan submitted by the government. Lawmakers also passed 5 other bills on Thursday. 2 of the 5 were backed by the ruling's Henry Party. One lays out plans to promote tourism, and the other funds medical tourism and businesses in the healthcare industry seeking to enter the global market. The other 3 bills were backed by the opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party, one for the construction of public postnatal care centers and another that caps the number of hours medical specialists can work. A third bill seeks to prevent conglomerates from using forceful sales tactics with their suppliers, most of which are small businesses. Meanwhile, the rival parties agreed to pass bills related to counterterrorism initiatives and North Korea's human rights by December 9th. They'll hold extra sessions to discuss contentious labor reform bills. Myung-kil, Arirang News.
Now, in related parliamentary business, members of the clergy in Korea will soon have to pay income tax following the passage of another bill that follows nearly 50 years of debate on the subject. Shin Se-min reports.
Starting in 2018, all members of the clergy will have to pay income tax. The related bill was passed by the National Assembly early Wednesday after 47 years of debate. Under the new law, between 20% and 80% of a clergy member's earnings classified as necessary expenses will be tax-exempt, with the percentage dependent on the person's total income. Breaking it down, clergy members who make $34,000 or less per year will see only 20% of their income taxed, while the percentage will be higher for those with higher incomes. It was a move many in Korea considered long overdue, as Korea is the last of the OECD member nations to tax members of religious groups.
It's only fair to tax those who make money. It could even increase the offerings, as the religious leaders will have to unveil the amount of offerings.
For a long time, the government had been pushing the bill as part of its efforts to bring greater equality to taxation. Previous efforts had failed due to opposition from religious leaders who said their work was a spiritual service, not labor. The fact that the new law will not go into effect for another 2 years is a reflection of the sensitivity of the issue, and legislators say the grace period will give religious groups time to adjust to the new policy. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
The Fair Trade Commission has lifted 18 regulations that were imposed on things like meat, parking lots and online games, to name but a few. The government aims to facilitate fair competition and revitalise the economy as part of President Park Geun-hye's deregulation drive. Connie Kim reports.
T-bone steaks produced domestically were generally not available at marts or supermarkets because of a regulation that bars sales and production of pork and beef with combined cuts.
Only separate beef and pork cuts came in for sale. We were only allowed to sell parts of beef and pork separately.
However, with the lifting of the regulation by the Fair Trade Commission, local meat producers and sellers will now be able to compete on a more fair ground.
Consumers will have access to diverse goods at reasonable prices. Locally produced meat will compete on the same grounds with imported meat.
Besides this regulation, 17 others have been lifted in line with President Park Geun-hye's deregulation drive to revitalize the country's economy and create more jobs. Hot spring spas will no longer need to have an indoor swimming pool to get an operation license. By cutting down building costs, the government aims to promote hot spring spas into must-visit destinations. Parking lots will also benefit from these measures. Once spaces reserved for cars only, they will serve as venues for temporary open markets as long as they have permission from local governments. The country's fast-growing online game market is expected to get a boost too. Gamers will be able to spend up to about $430 in game-related purchases on cyberspace, up $170 from the current limit. Korea expects to see $670 million worth of investment and generate some 800 new jobs with the lifting of regulations. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Korea's economic growth in the third quarter quickened from an earlier estimate thanks to livelier domestic demand. Still, meeting the government's annual growth target of 3% seems like it's going to be a tough task. Hwang Ji-ae has the details.
Customers are busy digging up goods at a massive sales event. The promotional campaign led by local retailers comes after the Korean government launched a similar Black Friday event back in October.
I came out to buy what my daughter needs, and I was satisfied with the discount rate and the variety of products.
On the back of such government measures to jumpstart spending, Korea's economy expanded at the fastest pace in more than 5 years. The Bank of Korea says it grew 1.3% in the July to September period from the previous quarter, despite the country's traditional growth engine exports losing steam.
Net exports dragged down third quarter growth by 0.8 of a percentage point. Domestic demand, on the other hand, contributed to growth by 2 percentage points, up 1.4 percentage points from a quarter earlier, driving up overall growth.
But the outlook when it comes to meeting the government's growth target of 3% for this year does not look bright. To reach that goal, the economy has to expand around 2% on quarter in the last 3 months of this year, which experts say is very unlikely to happen.
The extra money that the government pumped into the economy had a major impact on third quarter growth, but that effect will be diluted in the fourth quarter. Also, there will be a high base effort from Q3.
Korea's central bank expects the economy to grow 2.7% this year, and to do so, it needs to expand 0.8% in the last quarter. In the face of the lingering uncertainties from China's slowing economy and a possible rate hike by the U.S. Federal Reserve this month, widely expected to cause turmoil in emerging economies, some experts are even skeptical about whether Korea will be able to achieve 3% growth next year. Hwang Ji-ae, Arirang News.
Now, Korea has long trained and hired its legal personnel using a bar exam system. The system was supposed to be replaced by US-style law schools in 2017, but today the government announced it would delay the plan by another 4 years. Lee Soo-eun explains why.
For the last 50-plus years, if you wanted to become a lawyer, prosecutor, or judge in Korea, it didn't matter whether or not you had a law degree, as long as you passed a notorious bar exam called 사법시험. It had been that way since the 1970s, despite widespread opposition to the system.
When people pass the bar, they live and study with their fellow students for 2 years at the Judicial Research and Training Institute. Some of them become judges, others become prosecutors and lawyers. Because the training takes place at just one institution, they form an alliance of their own. There's a fundamental lack of variety.
In response, the government instituted a Western-style law school system in 2009, with 25 new law schools nationwide. Graduates could become lawyers after writing a separate version of the state bar exam. Initially, the government had decided that the new system would replace the current one in 2017, meaning that you couldn't pursue a legal career unless you went to law school. But on Thursday, the Ministry of Justice announced the system won't be implemented until 2021.
The law school system is in the process of stabilizing, with 7 years of notable accomplishments. But there is a need for additional objective data, study and analysis to determine whether it will fulfill the Korean people's expectations without further improvements.
However, some say this is just a delay and argue that the current system must be retained for longer.
The bar exam is a test that anyone, regardless of education level, age, background or affluence, can take and pass. However, law schools are fundamentally graduate schools, so only people with undergraduate degrees can go there, and the tuition is very high, at around $17,000 a year.
During the next 4 years until the rule is implemented, Korea may need to weigh the consequences of choosing between the concept of equal opportunity associated with the bar versus the notion of institutional diversity affiliated with law school. Isuin, Arirang News.
Korea is going to dispatch a special team of investigators to the Philippines in an attempt to get to the bottom of a string of brutal and often deadly attacks on Korean nationals there. The National Police Agency says 63 specialists in related fields such as forensics, crime and safety have been enlisted. So far, 2 groups have been formed, led by inspectors with up to 20 years of experience in solving criminal cases. This will mark the first time Korean police authorities have conducted investigations overseas. Over the last 4 years, 38 Korean nationals have been murdered in the Philippines. Officials say the Philippines' lack of capacity in forensic science and police investigations means many of the cases remain unsolved. Britain has carried out airstrikes against Islamic State targets in Syria just hours after its parliament voted in favour of military action. Early Thursday morning local time, 4 Tornado jets took off from an RAF airbase in Cyprus. The UK Defence Secretary said the air raids targeted the Omar oil fields in eastern Syria, which are controlled by ISIS. The first pair of jets took off just over an hour after the parliament vote had come in. After a 10-hour debate in the House of Commons on Wednesday, MPs voted 397 to 223 in favour of airstrikes. Britain had already been bombing ISIS targets in Iraq, but now joins the US-led coalition carrying out military operations against ISIS in Syria. 2 suspects have been killed in connection with a shooting rampage at a social services centre for disabled people in Southern California. Authorities identified the 2 as Saeed Rizwan Farouk and Tashfeen Malik. Both were shot dead after an exchange of fire with officers. Now, the relationship between them is unclear, but they have been described as either married or engaged. The San Bernardino police chief says Farouk, a county employee, attended a holiday party at the Inland Regional Centre, stormed out and later came back and opened fire. Now, at least 14 people were killed and 17 wounded in the incident that took place on Wednesday morning local time. The 2 are believed to have been the only shooters involved, and while the motive is not yet known, officials have cited workplace violence and terrorism as possibilities. Now, on a lighter note, Hong Kong played host to the 2015 Mnet Asian Music Awards on Wednesday night. Asia's largest K-pop music awards ceremony was a major draw for fans who had a chance to see their favourite stars up close on the stage. Our Kim Ji-yeon was there and filed this report.
Hong Kong brimmed with excitement as K-pop fans cheered at the sight of their favorite performers at Mama, a huge event which is now in its 16th year. Korean boy bands Big Bang and EXO each won 4 awards at this year's Mama, while the groups tied and had to split the award for Best Album, the most prestigious award at the event. Big Bang grabbed the Best Music Video award for their song Bang Bang Bang, while EXO won Best Male Group, Best Asian Style, and Global Fans Choice. Girl group Girls' Generation won Best Female Group.
We wouldn't have received such wonderful honors this year without the continuous support from our fans. For us, Mama has always been the great finale to wrap up the year. We're really thankful we received a lot of awards. We'll keep putting our utmost effort into everything we do.
The Mnet Asian Music Awards is the largest K-pop music festival in Asia, hosted by Korean retail giant CJ E&M. And it's a truly global event. It's broadcast on 4 continents: Asia, Europe, North America, and Oceania. Beyond the TV screens, fans can catch up with the latest events through Mama's online and mobile platforms.
The 4-hour-long event ended with a performance by Psy, who dazzled 10,000 fans with his latest song, Daddy. Kim Jeon, Arirang News, Hong Kong.
Well, that's all the news we have for you at this hour. I've been Mark Broom. Daniel Che will be back again at the same time tomorrow. And we'll have all the major stories of the day during News Centre. That's coming up at 10 p.m. Korea time. Goodbye.